Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, a week or so ago, we did a podcast on the Wall Street Journal reporter, Evan Gershkovich, who was arrested in Ekaterinburg on charges of espionage. He has now been formally charged with espionage, and of course the U.S. media are going absolutely crazy about this horrific persecution of journalism, and the very same media that say nothing about Julian Assange, and then we even had the spectacle of Secretary of State Antony Blinken giving a phone call to Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov last week. This is very rare. They don't often talk, in which he brought up the subject of Gershkovich. They didn't even talk about Ukraine. It was just specifically about Evan Gershkovich.
It's always what they want to talk about.
Exactly, what they want to talk about, exactly. And of course, Lavrov said what you would expect him to say. Well, the legal process must work itself through. I mean, there are charges. There will have to be, a trial, and then see what happens. But already, the media is demanding that Russia release him, or some kind of a swap be immediately put into effect. Before a trial, before anything else. And in Russia, as in the United States, legal processes are very complicated, and you can't just step in at any time you want and say, well, we're just going to bring it to an end. Like Putin puts in a phone call to the prison governor and says, hey, release him. That's not how it works. And it doesn't work like that in the United States. The president can't just call up some district attorney in Arkansas somewhere and
be impeached for it.
Yeah, exactly. So nothing much can be done. But something that we were talking about is that one thing that could shake up the equation is
the unthinkable, but the most reasonable.
Exactly. If the United States, made an offer of exchanging Julian Assange for Evan Gershkovich. Now, there still have to be
journalist
for journalists. Exactly. And because although there still have to be a legal procedure, one suspects the legal procedure can be expedited if there's a prospect of exchange for Julian Assange. But of course, it's very interesting because whether the Americans who apparently care so much about the freedom of the press, whether they would be ready to for such a swap, which would be, as you say, one for one, a perfectly symmetrical swap. Anyway, what do you think, Peter?
Yeah, well, before we started this video, George and I were talking about this, and it was George that came up with the idea. I actually had been thinking about this could be a great way to resolve this issue with Julian Assange. And this Evan guy, he can go home. Okay, I don't want to see him languish in a Russian prison. I don't. Okay, I don't at all. Okay, but as I endlessly have to explain to people, this is not a Hollywood film. Okay, charges have been made. And now the procedures start. He's been officially charged. Okay. Now, considering what my limited experience, and I'm glad it's limited with the judicial system here, now the paperwork begins, and it is voluminous, voluminous. And so pre-trial is going to take basically discovery process and things like this. The judicial system here is not the same as in the UK and not in America. So don't think, this is a Law and Order episode. It's not, okay? Once it starts, there is a machinery that goes into effect, and it usually works very slowly. Now, George is right. If this were deemed a national security issue or other national priority, then I think, yeah, it could be probably expedited, saying this is an important, in a broader scheme of things, might be a smidgen, move it up a little bit faster. But if Lavrov is going to call up the Ministry of Interior and say, we want to get this guy out, he's going to hang up the phone. It's none of your business. Okay, it's my job.
That's
okay,
right. That's
my agent found him. Okay,
yes, yeah.
The court system exists for a reason. Okay, so butt out.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It kind of reminds me of what was that thing? Michael Cohen, who was still working for Trump at the time, and he wanted to get he thought that he's going to arrange the building of a Trump Tower in Moscow. He had no idea what to do, so he gets on the phone to the Kremlin and says, "Hey,
cold
maybe
call. Cold call."
A cold call, to Peskov, say, "Hey, Trump wants to build a Trump Tower in Moscow," and I have no idea what you're talking about. Hey, call up the mayor's office. I mean, if you want a building permit or whatever, I mean, we don't handle that. But that's a strange kind of thing. People always assume that in Russia, you put in a call to Putin's office, and everything can just sort of move. I mean, in Russia, it doesn't work like that any more than it works like that anywhere else. I mean, you want a building permit, you talk to the people who issue building permits. But so the same here. Blinken calls up Lavrov. Well, Lavrov is a foreign minister. He doesn't have anything to do with, the Justice Ministry, with security or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have any power over these things.
Well, I mean, Lavrov could say, well, I mean, okay, this is not my wheelhouse, but, I'd just really like to know, what's DA Bragg doing with Trump? It seems very strange to me. Is that his jurisdiction to do that? Over on this side of the pond, we're trying to understand how your legal system works. Okay, right. I'll tell you how ours works. Okay, right. Yes. But yours seems to be very dysfunctional. I don't know why you're calling me about rule of law and journalism. Yes. You've got Julian Assange being extradited to the United States. Okay, right. What was his crime? Oh, he was telling the truth about something.
That's right. He was exactly. He was telling the truth. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So Blinken is calling, this is how the Russians react. It's just like, okay, this is important to you for some reason, okay? Right. Not important to us. Okay?
No, that's right. That's right. And again, I mean, obviously he hasn't been put on trial, but from the charges, I mean, they've made a charge that he himself was directly involved in spying. We don't know that's true. That's the charge. But at least in the case of Julian Assange, I mean, they don't even have that. They don't say that he ever hacked anything, that he ever spied on anything. He acted as a publisher. He published things that people provided him with. That's all he did. So you don't even have the reasonable basis for charging him with espionage. I mean, I know the Americans are charging him with espionage, but it's nonsensical. He was just simply acting as a publisher. And slowness of the process. Remember, he was dragged out of the Ecuador embassy now. I think tomorrow it'll be exactly 4 years. It was April the 11th, 2019. So exactly 4 years he's been languishing in a British prison while this whole extradition process works its way out. So, nothing moves quickly when it comes to matters of legal procedure. And there's no reason to think that it'll move fast in Russia, other than if you decided to make an offer, a serious offer, that would interest the Russians. Otherwise, why should they bother? Let the process work itself out.
Well, one thing that might expedite it is pleading guilty, if that's the case. Okay, and that will speed up the. I mean, it's all baked in everyone's mind over in the West. Oh, we just have to start thinking about a swap. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, if that's what your goal is, I mean, I wouldn't bet the farm on it. I mean, the West is at war with Russia. I mean, why the Russians get hey, take a break?
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Let's talk about humanitarian issues. Okay, right. No, they're not going to do that right now. There's no reason why they would. Okay,
no, exactly.
And because even though it's old-fashioned, it's anachronism now about declaring war, but war is in effect right now. Espionage is the most serious thing you can commit outside of an act of terrorism.
Right. Exactly. It's a very serious charge. It's a very serious war that Russia is engaged in, and these are serious charges. I mean, there are, to say the least, real questions involved. What he was doing in this military-industrial town of Yekaterinburg, and people testify he was asking all sorts of questions about industrial output, work shifts, production rates, and so on. Those are wartime secrets. You know, as a journalist, you know, you have to be, you know, realize that those are wartime secrets. You don't just simply go around to military factories and start asking those kinds of questions. So there's far more of a case here than there ever was against Julian Assange. So there's again the Western media. Oh, we have freedom of the press, whereas they don't, and so on. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, you don't have freedom of the press, and if you're a journalist, you know, you have to know the score. You know, it's responsible of any journalist to know what the score is, and that you don't act in a way that could be interpreted as espionage. I mean, and so both he and evidently his editors and his management, it seemingly they acted irresponsibly, if not worse.
As far as I know, when Matt Taibbi was testifying in front of Congress, the IRS knocked on his door at home. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, you care a lot about journalists, don't you?
Right.
Also, you kind of end up on the Paul Whelan. Hey, dude, you're getting pushed back in the queue again.
Yeah, it's Paul Whelan. It's a problematic for Paul Whelan. Yeah, he's kind of, yes, exactly. He's getting pushed back. But the interesting thing is that they always assume that Russia does this for the sake of swaps. But Russia never really does this. I mean, the only people who are anxious about the swaps is always the Americans. I mean, they're the ones who are always pushing for these swaps. And then, you know, the Russians says, oh, well, all right, I mean, if you insist. But the fact was, it was the Americans who basically, you know, they got a kind of a junky basketball player for a, you know, what somebody they called, you know, one of the big arms dealers in the world. He wasn't, but nonetheless, that's what they accused him of. That's what they convicted him of. So it's very strange for them to say, oh, the Russians are doing it for a swap. Well, the only ones who are interested in swaps is you.
Well, I mean, Victor Bout, when it comes to his case, the way it is perceived here, at least, is here is a Russian citizen that was grossly prosecuted, mostly because of his nationality, okay? And then that was an act of humanitarianism on the part of the Russians. This guy has suffered enough, okay? Everything they said about him, tried to pin on him, was just laughable in its face, okay? And they're saying, let's bring him home, okay? And they want this basketball player so much, who pleaded guilty, okay? Fine, okay? But now, I mean, I'm going to stand journalist. There's a way out here. Evan, you're going to be here for a while, no matter what happens, okay? But maybe that's a hope. Maybe that's a possibility.
It certainly would be. It would get the it would be a boost for the Biden administration. I mean, they would have it, you know, that would keep some of the kind of the liberal press, you know, who are a little uncomfortable with the whole Assange case, you know, that would say, oh, wonderful, you know, Biden, he's really on our side. We always thought he was on our side. So it would be a boost for him. And obviously it would be a humanitarian gesture for both of them. You know, Assange has now been in such horrible conditions now for so many years. I mean, you know, judging by the pictures of his recent pictures of him, he looks in terrible shape. Looks about 20 years older than his real age. So, you know, it would work all the way around. But that's the only way that I can see that you're going to move the ball. But making phone calls to Lavrov and, you know, banging the fist on the table in the Wall Street Journal editorial board or the New York Times editorial board, that ain't going to cut it. You know, the Russians aren't interested in that.
And it never helps.
Right. Yeah.
It never helps.
Right.
This is all done quietly through intermediaries. It takes time. There's no deadline. And both sides have to get something that they feel it's worthwhile, okay? The basketball player pleaded guilty. So I think they took pity upon the person. And she liked coming here, making tons of money, okay, on the off season, okay? But now, you know, if the fate of journalists are really important to you, well, George and I just giving you a scenario.
Exactly, a way forward. I mean, and I think that if those who are blustering, we've outlined a way forward. You want to solve this? It's a perfectly good, reasonable solution. It's there. It's open for you. It's doable. It could probably be accomplished within a few months. And
it's all legal.
Yeah, exactly.
All legal on all sides.
Exactly.
No, it's not telephone justice, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
It's being creative and wanting to solve a problem. But the problem with the West is they don't believe in win-win. We win, you lose. Exactly. They have to get over that, okay? Right. In this case.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's exactly right. No. We're not gonna give him Julian Assange. Much too important for us. Okay, well, then this guy is going to be there for a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. These are serious charges. You're not going to walk. With a short prison term. It's not going to be a tap on the wrist.
George and I have solved it. Give us enough time, we'll solve more problems. Get more news. Okay.
That's exactly right.
Donations to the chip jar.
Yes, more time
will help.
Yes.
Kind of grease the wheels of our intellect and our moral crusade on this podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, okay, that's our update. We're going to watch this very, very closely. Okay, I know others have. I saw this ridiculous article in Politico. I sent it to George and I said, no such article for Julian Assange. Okay. So, we're going to keep pushing at it because I think it's the way forward. It's good. It's win-win. And I believe
win-win. Exactly. It's a good solution, win-win, and solves a lot of problems right away for everyone. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody. This is Peter and George. We are the Gaggle. We're on Local. So please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Visit our store. And this time tomorrow, George will be jawboning.
Exactly. So it will be time for my live stream on Locals, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join me with comments, criticisms, and suggestions. And on the way out the door, think about little buddy. He's always been a problem solver. That's what he always said. I'm a problem solver. Put enough coins in my tip jar and all problems are solved. So if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip them out. Dunk him in his tip jar, then he'll feel that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's the way to solve problems. There's nothing you can't solve with lots of money. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology, and above all, the more we can keep Buddy focused on problem solving rather than litigation. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.